We arrived at San Francisco 20 days after leaving Yokohama. We'd managed not to lose even a single day despite the obstacles our seemingly simple steamer journey had thrown up at my urging. We lost like 5 days, didn't we? First Mate Wang accepted the captaincy. Oh, yeah. At my urging, First Mate Wang accepted the captaincy and bid us a sincerely tearful farewell as we disembarked. Right, San Francisco. So we need to plan. This one departs tomorrow. What, any day? I mean any time? Tomorrow at 5 p.m. Transcontinental Express. I could make this for 110, this for 170, this for 370. That's a big difference. Cheyenne to Omaha, and then Burlington for 400. It's only another 30 then. This leg is kind of expensive, and this one is kind of not then. I don't think I want to go through Canada though. So I'd love to get up to Gastown, which means I'll have to find out if there is a way tomorrow. So let's book a hotel. We have barely enough money for that, I guess. San Francisco seemed less a city and more a ravenous beast bent on consumption of everything, even of itself. Within the ever-expanding city limits, enormous steam-powered drills and diggers flattened hills, or the building works made it tricky to talk to anyone. Such was the infernal constant noise. I headed towards Chinatown to eat. It was a warren of crowded wooden and brick houses, temples, businesses, herbalists, laundries, and market stalls selling fruit and flowers. Brightly colored lanterns illuminated the streets, and little draconic automata spewing black smoke caught the attention of passers-by to restaurants and gambling houses. The Chinese theater dominated one of the streets, having been imported from Shanghai and reconstructed in San Francisco. They advertised Chinese theatrical performances. Large groups of men stood around smoking, drinking green tea and calling to each other good-naturedly. I felt quite at home. I traveled around more than half the world, after all. What was one more foreigners in such a foreign place as America? I decided to approach. A young man with a cute ponytail was relaxing outside a small shop with arms outstretched. He seemed to me a laborer. Despite his slender frame, his arms were heavily muscled. His name was Jing Huo, and he was enjoying a single day off from working on the Transcontinental Railway to New York. "Is the line done?" I asked, and he shot me a weary look. "Nearly, but no. Outlaws keep stealing lengths of track. It is open to the public as far as Burlington still. I should not complain. At least I have a job." What would he do once the railway was complete? Alas, I had little time to ponder this, as I had to bid him a hasty goodbye and return to my master. But we did know that, unfortunately, already. The railway to Burlington. Also, there is a route up the Californian coast, though. So I sloped towards the recently constructed Long Bridge, which was crowded with families out for a stroll and people fishing for silvery smelt with long poles. In the water was a jangle of rowing boats, racing each other and boatmen taking passengers out to Mission Rock. Cheers and good-natured shout emitted from a halfway house in the middle of the bridge. I scoured the water for boats we might take. Yeah, sure. There seemed to be none heading out. All were fishing. A man, red-faced and somewhat worse for drink, bumped into me. I excused myself politely, and he made an apology in return, slinging an arm around my shoulders. "Ah, hello," he explained. "You don't sound like you are from here. He's gonna rob me, right? With my last remaining 61 pounds. I hurried away, not wanting to a protracted conversation. So this departs at 3 p.m. Yeah, we don't have the money for that. Unless we can sell something. Chicago, Houston, Regina. Do we have anything? 2,100 Calgary. Anything that's worth something here? Not really. I mean, we could get 160 together, but I feel like we need a bit of money, and there might not be banks in other places. We have additional funds. I am a gentleman. They would expend me credit if required, he replied. But do you suppose I put my entire fortune into a carpetbag under your supervision? Of course, I regarded the bank as we entered. It was a place of stone and shimmering marble floors, beautiful windows, fountains, and plants. You wish to withdraw funds, we were told. I warn you, it may take some time. 3,000 on Tuesday, that's 1, 2, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's 5 days. I mean, that's not a good deal. So I either take 1,000 tomorrow or 5,000 in a week. I mean, we don't need 5,000 for the rest of the journey. 1,000 might not be enough, though. We require 1,000 pounds, I said. The manager nodded. I will have to communicate with London first, of course. He apologized. I should have replied tomorrow. It seems Monsieur Fogg regarded as we left. We have some time to dispose of. Okay. This one also. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. Yeah. We can take 3 suitcases. So I think we need to sell something. Ah! What are we doing? Okay. Maybe the shortbread biscuit. Maybe the shaving kit. I can try and get the wax cylinder in here as well. Which is worth a lot in Regina. That is in Canada somewhere. I think, yeah, Regina, Saskatchewan. We have something for Calgary, something for Regina to sell, I think. I mean, with that, we should have enough money then, I hope. I don't know if the 96 are enough for a hotel, though. It seems. Spent a while talking to the hotelier to learn what I could, hearing from him that the quickest way to Cheyenne is through Salt Lake City. Useful information, no doubt. Bank opens at, or funds at 9 a.m. Alright. We returned to the bank at opening time to collect our funds, and then we were ready to proceed once more. Arrives tomorrow. It's fine. -23 health. took passage with one Monsieur Williamson, a dark-haired, keen-eyed fellow with a magnificent leather coat and, more relevantly to our requirements, a well-used gyrocopter. "You make this journey often?" I inquired. "Every month," he told me, jovially enough. "The city folk in San Francisco can't get enough furs, and I visit regularly to ply my trade." I could not see any space for cargo and repeated my observation to him. He laughed. "On the southbound journey, the furs were piled high where you and your master sit," he said. "Though not as high as I might have liked." His voice roughened. "I've had a bad season. I'm sorry to hear that." "Ah well," he grimaced. "Sometimes luck goes against you. That's the way of the world." "Indeed so," I agreed, thinking of the various disasters and hair's-breadth escapes we ourselves had experienced on our journey. Monsieur Williamson chuckled, and we began our journey north, companionably enough, ceasing our conversation only when the sound of the gyrocopter's blades against the wind muffled our voices. "Greetings, Williamson. My brother always wanted to travel aboard the Canadian Pacific Railway from Gastown to Calgary." "Do tell me more about Calgary." "Calgary is quite literally a one-horse town." Calgary, Regina. "Subject of trains, I've heard Atlanta is linked to Washington aboard the Piedmont airline." Regina, Winnipeg. "Until Chicago can be reached from Atlanta aboard the Western and Atlantic Railroad." Winnipeg. Toronto. Time for me to be off, I think. So, Chicago, Atlanta? Yeah, I don't think so. Is that all we've discovered? Really? Saw the smoke and steam of San Francisco in its full scale as we left the city. The great iron line of the cross-continental railway snaked east over the horizon, an enterprise almost too vast to contemplate. "How do you find the city?" He wiped some soot from his goggles and grinned. "San Francisco is a place where a man may make his mark. Where he has no history but what he creates for himself." "And you would be one of these new men?" I said shrewdly, shorn of history, ready to make your mark. Monsieur Williamson sighed heavily. "My mother has a passion for history. She fought for better treatments of the First Nations tribes. Thought that we Canadians were destroying their lands, their heritage. She even married and had a child with a Musqueam tribesman. He indicated his own person with a flourish. Do you regret your circumstances?" He shook his head. "What did it serve them? My mother is a laughingstock amongst her peers. My father's people dwindled to nothingness." Looked away. "The history is a burden that I do not wish to carry." "I do not think it is so easy to turn away from the past," I shrugged. "I wish you luck in whatever you choose to be." He smiled and turned away. Ah, too late. The second day we flew down the endless, forested coast, and it seemed as though we traveled across a different planet than the one of my birth. "It is a wilderness," I exclaimed. "That it is," Monsieur Williamson agreed. Though I saw my master politely look askance, which I took to mean that he disagreed. Though I could hardly see how that was possible. Monsieur Williamson shot me a grateful look, and shook my hand with great care after we landed in Gastown's tiny aeroport. "Good luck to you too, Passepartout," he told me fervently. "Perhaps you will find yourself a new here also. The amethyst could be sold handsomely here. Alright. So this one leaves in 2 days at 1 p.m. And it costs like what? 610? That's almost all our money. Shit. I mean, we do want to go to Calgary first anyway, right? Let's explore. New routes? Where? Can we go back to San Francisco? Gastown was supposedly named after one Gassy Jack, a Yorkshire steamboat captain turned barkeep. It served as a drinking hole for loggers and fishermen from inland, as well as the sailors and air crews of the ships drawn to the Burrard Inlet for trade. It was a rough and ready sort of place, and I was in the mood to enjoy it. Its simple, largely alcoholic pleasures. I fell into conversation with a logger. She was a woman of few words, and fewer than the usual number of fingers, with which she nursed one beer after another. The one luxury in the town was its distributed steam heating system. Steam hissed warmly through grates in the town's pavements, and even powered a steam clock, which whistled the time to the town citizens every hour. A strange symbol of society's progress, but one that was no doubt as potent as the newly built depot for the Canadian Pacific Railway, parallel to Water Street. Gastown was, for better or worse, a truly modern town. Gassy Jack, Dayton Saloon. Valuable in Burlington, Omaha and Calgary. Chicago, Omaha and Winnipeg. Valuable here. That's weird. Yeah, okay. What did it say? The amethyst? Valuable here, yeah. Calgary, 2,100. Yeah, we need that. Some markets. Valuable here. Gold Transi, loot with 3 strings made of horsehair, so Calgary will be our next stop. Omaha. I mean, all this is worth a lot in Omaha. Calgary, there we go. Minsk. Oh, that's Nebraska, right? Yeah. So we'll take the hotel, I guess. Pass the night here. Before going to bed, I attended to Monsieur Fogg, providing him with a haircut. And then we'll have to stay another day, right? What time does this leave tomorrow to Calgary? 1 p.m. Only thing I'm afraid of is, if we stop in Calgary, we'll have to wait for like another 2 days or something to catch the same train again. That we could have just called to Winnipeg right away. You know? Yeah, well. So where are we? In Gastown. Day 48. Let's sleep again. Comfortable for the night, and I spent a few hours walking around, enjoying the sights and smells of this curious part of the world. And then we'll depart to Calgary. The conductor, a dark-haired First Nations woman, eyed me dubiously. First time on the Canadian Pacific Railway, she asked. Indeed it is. She refrained from rolling her eyes. The line runs from Gastown all the way to Ottawa, though you have to change at Winnipeg. It's the first transcontinental railway in the Dominion of Canada, she paused, fixing me with a look. We're going around the world, I replied, so this line will be most advantageous to us. She was nonplussed. The railway isn't owned by the government or a private company, but by the Blackfoot Confederacy. This here is First Nations territory, so no smoking, no liquor, and no firearms, you hear? No liquor? I all but gasped. Firearms and smoking have their perils, I admit. But you would deny Frenchmen a glass of Chablis upon your railway? I've got enough trouble with whiskey runners, and are people getting sick, she narrowed her eyes. As long as you ride a Blackfoot train, we'll have to do without. The steam whistle sounded twice, and I hurried back to Monsieur Fogg as we pulled out of the station. Let's converse. Greetings, Monsieur Fleet. Good day there. Calgary. Winnipeg is a crossroad of sorts. Winnipeg, Regina. I don't know, but listen, there are some strange devices for sale in Regina. In Regina's back alleys. Talk a lot, don't you? Yeah, I do, actually. Calgary to Toronto. Okay. Sorry. So the train began its journey, but it was only once we were underway that we realized a terrible truth. The train, although comfortable, was slow. The full journey across Canada was going to take over a week, not including times for changes. We began to consider most seriously the options of stopping halfway and finding other ways forward instead. San Francisco Chinatown riots. Oh good we're out of there. Good thing we're out of there. So Monsieur Fogg and I were in a shared carriage, and I found my eye caught by a quiet Métis woman with two surly teenagers in tow. Where are you headed? I asked curiously. Calgary, the woman replied, casting a quelling glance at the teenagers. Our aunt lives there. Perhaps she'll have better luck getting my brothers to listen. I hesitated to ask about their parents, sensing a tragic tale, and instead directed all three of them with stories of my travels with my master. Distracted them. Rather. Monsieur Fogg barely lifted his head from his ledger as the train pulled into Calgary. Much to my amusement, he kept his nose in the book even as we disembarked. Nose in the book. 5 p.m. It's alright. It's worth so much here. Gentleman's wardrobe. Russian gentleman's wardrobe. Why would we need that? Valuable in Regina, Winnipeg, and Ottawa. Let's see about that. So if we plan tomorrow at 1 p.m. Or we could go all the way to Toronto. Bell Rose departs for Toronto tomorrow at 12 noon for 700. Arrives Sunday, so that's only a couple of days. This one is considerably cheaper though. I mean, we still have a bit of time. We'll pass the night here. Monsieur Fogg and I have been banned from ever returning to the town of Calgary. Parbleu. What? I'm veritably seething from the injustice as I write this faithful record of what transpired. Truly, it was only a small disturbance. Most dreadful misunderstanding. The kind that can haunt a man for years afterward. It began with a punch. I neither threw the punch, nor was I in its path, but I did, unfortunately, happen across an alley in time to witness it. It was 3 against 1, an unfair fight, and the victim went down with a hard thump, blood spraying the wall. I caught a glimpse of pain in these dark eyes before they shuttered closed, and the man's assailant began to kick the prone man's form. All 4 of the men were First Nations, though the victim was dressed in a coat, jacket and cowboy boots. Hair cropped close, while his attackers were in traditional clothes, hair in braids under their thick hoods. Admit I cursed under my breath at the sight before shouting at them to stop, and the meanest looking one in the bunch aimed a particularly vicious kick at the fallen man's head. I threw myself over the injured man, felt the kick that was meant for him land squarely between my ribs. Rough hands pulled me from the floor and shoved me back. The fight was on. I managed to distract them from their prone target and held my own remarkably well against their attacks, but it was 3 against 1. Again, and only a matter of time before they finally took me down. I did not let despair weaken me, parbleu. Was I not Jean Passepartout, valet extraordinaire? I would not go down without a fight. A sharp whistle interrupted my musings and stilled the fists flying at my head. Well, 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 a rough American accented voice drawled. Looks like we got here just in time. Stupid of you boys to go after one of my interpreters. Beat up a white man besides. You'll be strung up for that alone. I bristled a little at the racist implication. The men were in the wrong for attacking 3-on-1, not because their victim was white. I did not care to find myself in solidarity with one of such opinions. But neither did I think much of my assailants, and so I kept my mouth shut. The Americans turned out to be whiskey traders. The fellow who had been jumped was a Cree man. They used as a go-between. Apparently, he had been trying to sell liquor illegally to some of the First Nations teenagers at the nearby Tsutina reservation, and been caught out by a group of concerned and angry parents. I could not countenance the Tsutina's violent response, and said so, but the men merely laughed bitterly. They come and sell their poison to our children and young people. They profit of destroying lives. And that is what you have to say? They shook their heads. A bottle of whiskey is more dangerous than a fist or a bullet. I looked at the eldest of the Tsutina men, who was watching the Cree boy with revealed sympathy. We have to fight to protect what is ours. These people profit from our softness, our kindness, so we must lock such feelings away. The hard-eyed American in the lead cleared his throat. Enough talk. He drew his pistol from his holster and settled into a shooter's stance. Time to settle this. 3 more brown corpses won't even raise an eyebrow. I stood in front of the Tsutina as a shield. What about a white man's corpse, monsieur? Move away, friend. The gun did not waver, not even for a second. This is your last warning. Don't do this, I cried, and he shot me. Well, he would have. The Cree youth had not shoved me away and then collapsed on top of me. He shot at me, I cried, still a little shocked. The youth cast me an unreadable look and scrambled to his feet. He ran over to the whiskey traders as fast as his feet would carry him, and I didn't blame him in the least. Something tumbled out of his pocket and landed in the dirt. A rectangular device blinking with green and yellow lights. I slipped it into my pocket, deciding that I would examine it at a more opportune time. The whiskey traders marched away with their charge, and by the time I dusted myself off the two Tina men, had made themselves scarce as well. All that remained was yours truly in an alley with bullet shells and blood spattered in the dirt. It was of course when the Northwest Mounted Police arrived and arrested me. I was released in a matter of hours with a stern warning, though I protested my innocence. I gave Monsieur Fogg an excuse for my long absence and appearance, but I rather fancy he knew more of the situation than he let on. I think, he said after a chilly silence, that we have quite worn out our welcome in the city, Passepartout. It's past time we are on our way. I kinda agree. I spent a few hours in exploration. We still have enough time for that. Learning ways in which we might travel onwards. Oh, that's all already? Okay, so I want this, I think. And maybe this, and maybe this. And then we'll travel on. Should we go all the way to Winnipeg? I mean, this one? Oh, this is railway that departs in 3 days. Yeah, no. This departs right now. That's weird, but sure. We rejoined the Canadian Railway once more. The engine stamped with the buffalo horn mark of the Blackfoot engineers. The last run had been smooth. We could only hope for more of the same. Greetings, Madame Lagarde. Tickets, please. Let me tell you that you can get to New York from Winnipeg, aboard the Canadian Pacific Railway. Oh, that's nice. Apparently, some buyers will pay well for fast passports from New York. But now, is our engine not impressive? Indeed. We'll build bigger and better ones in the future. You will see. Winnipeg, Ottawa. You mentioned trains. I've been told Atlanta is connected to Miami by rail. Ottawa, Toronto? I doubt it. Ottawa, Dakar? Okay. So yeah, Winnipeg, Ottawa, New York. I think we're gonna do this. So Atlanta, Miami is a possibility, it seems. Okay. The lunch carriage was abuzz with gossip. Bowls of soup lay cooling and unserved as the waiters exchanged the latest news with passengers. I snatched a bowl for myself, applying spoon to the contents with single-minded intensity. Soup was not for congealing after all. The young Kainai waiter with a stylish leather jacket practically vibrated with eagerness to update me. "Oh, sir, one of the passengers spotted this morning. His voice dipped dramatically. Kavoka Othunwe." I handed him a handkerchief. And he rolled his eyes. Kawoka Othunwe, it means floating village in Lakota. And it does float? Oh, sir. Some say it's a myth, a village that floats in the sky, but look! The man completely ignored me, pointing out the carriage window and gathering the interest of several onlookers. It was seen near Regina by someone on this very train, only this morning. Who saw it then? I asked mildly. The waiter of course ignored me and beckoned to one of his friends. The second waiter seemed as overexcited as the first. "Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's true." He lowered his voice and beckoned us closer. I leaned in against my better judgment. He continued in hushed tones. The floating village was built by the Sioux, but was Sioux, it's pronounced, I think, right? But it is a place for all whose people are oppressed and whose lands are encroached upon. It is a place where peoples of different tribes and bands and races may come together in peace and secrecy. The headed cook seized both gossiping waiters by each ear and dragged them off before they could continue. I wondered what Monsieur Fogg would make of such strange tales. Copenhagen bomb threats continue. Alright. Previous day's gossip had not died down by the time we reached Regina. Monsieur Fogg seemed uncharacteristically pensive and resolved to make him a well-brewed cup of tea at the earliest convenient moment. Surely that would be preferable to a conversation about feelings. I asked nothing, lest he decide to leave the train. I did not exhale a breath until the whistle blew and we were pulling away from Regina on our way to Winnipeg. Winnipeg threatened by piracy increase. Well, good thing we didn't go there then. Mystery device. The final leg of our journey was mercifully brief. There was barely time to dine before we arrived. Can I check out the mystery device? So we're in Winnipeg now. Interesting. 5 p.m. Let's have a look at the market. Valuable in Atlanta. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to go to Georgia. Englishman's wardrobe. Cold climate. Oh, I do have some stuff for the cold climate, right? I mean, that's exactly the same price that we bought it for, right? Worth 2,000 in Quebec City. Let's buy the knitted gloves. With a complete cold climate set now. Gentleman's wardrobe set. Russian gentleman. I mean, maybe we'll need it. I don't know. Urban traveler. Yeah, probably not going to use that. Same as the heavy wrench. I don't know. Cold climate set. Knitted gloves. Yeah. High prices in some markets. Safety harness is heavy storm set. Yeah. So let's plan. So the train to New York departs tomorrow at 12 noon. Costs 410. Ottawa costs, what, 680 for some reason. That's weird. Arrives Wednesday, arrives Monday. Why is Ottawa? Because maybe if we want to, I mean, I might want to go to Quebec City. Let's see like how far north we can go. Or, maybe Winnisk even, Uvik and Nanortalik or something. I find it kind of curious that this is more expensive than this. There must be some reason for that, right? I mean, also, couldn't we just get a ticket to New York and then get off at Ottawa? So, we are in Winnipeg right now. It's day 54. So, we'll spend the night, I guess. It all began when my master and I turned a street corner in Winnipeg and found ourselves directly in the path of a galloping horse, with no rider to control it. Prepare to grab the reins as it passed. No doubt the horse had merely been frightened, would respond to calming touch. As the stallion drew closer, I could see his eyes rolling wildly. Lips pulled back to display yellowing teeth and foam dripping from the brittle. I froze in horror. I flexed my hands and snatched for the reins, pulling them sharply as the leather cut into my hands. The horse barely even registered the motion. Indeed, it began to drag me down the streets. I swung myself onto the horse's back, a move worthy of a Parisian acrobat. The stallion seemed to shudder all over. It had no doubt dispatched his previous rider in some gruesome fashion, and was looking to be similarly rid of me. I dug my heels into its sides, trying to get the creature to stop, or at least slow. I swear it sped up in response. Well, you probably shouldn't duck your heels into the sides. That was probably a stupid choice. Turned a little in the saddle and through the saw the silhouette of my master growing smaller and smaller in the distance. I had, it appeared, been kidnapped by a horse. Monsieur Fogg would not be pleased. And I was enjoying myself nonetheless. The crisp air, the open country, the rolling gait of the horse beneath me. The horse wore itself out an hour or so later and consented to let me slide off its back. I was stretching out my stiff muscles in a copse of trees when the ground began to tremble. A cloud of dust appeared on the horizon, slowly resolving itself into a posse of red-coated mounted police. Merde.